campaigning. I'm Isabella Lulio, and I'm a fashion campaigner and researcher. I'm a part of the global policy and research team in Fashion Revolution, and I'm based in Brazil, so I also worked as an educational coordinator at Fashion Revolution Brazil. So please bear in mind that English is my second language, so I might have some spelling mistakes and when I speak, so I'm really sorry about that. But I really look forward to sharing a lot of insights from my team at Fashion Revolution with you. Joining me today here are my colleagues Mel and Wangari, who are going to be helping me run the session and monitor the chat. So please feel free to put your opinions at the chat and ask questions. Please note that the session is going to be recorded and later shared on our YouTube channel. So it would be great to see your faces, but do keep this in mind when turning your camera on. Before we begin, it would be great if everyone could please use the chat to introduce yourself using the strict prompts on the screen. So we would love to know your name, where in the world are you joining the call from, and one fashion problem that you'd like to campaign to change. So please share in the chat so we can get to know each other. Today's session is a part of the How to Be a Fashion Revolutionary workshop series we are running for the Fashion Revolution Week. The goal is to keep our wonderful global community to be effective storytellers, community builders, educators, and campaigners for change. And we invite you to use this skill to join us for the next 10 years in the fashion activism world. If you enjoy this workshop, I invite you to also look for the other three team-related workshops that we are running, and they will also be available in our YouTube channel. So they are on engaging stories, creating and raising awareness, and building communities. And those are three things that we believe are essential for a good campaign. For today's workshop, we'll be exploring how to campaign for cultural, industry, and policy change in the global fashion industry. So we're going to have, in the first half, we're going to reflect on the past decade of campaigning, our lessons and wins, and share some ingredients behind two of the most iconic fashion revolution campaigns. So the Good Clothes Fair Pay and the Who Made My Clothes. And then in the second half, we'll open the discussion so we can together devise a campaign concept using some data from the latest Fashion Transparency Index. We hope that today's session leaves you feeling energized and inspired to start campaigning on the fashion industries that you care most about, and why not potentially with people that you meet here in the call. So I hope this is a really fruitful call for everyone. So first, who is Fashion Revolution? So Fashion Revolution was co-founded by Carrie Sommers and Ursula de Castro in the wake of the Rana Plaza factory collapse, to increase the transparency in the global fashion industry and in sending solidarity with the people who make our clothes. Since then, the movement has grown to be the largest fashion activist movement. And over the last decades, the Fashion Revolution movement has spread across 75 countries, 20 teams, and we are still growing. Together, we mobilize citizens, brands, policymakers through research, education, and advocacy. So campaigning is at the heart of everything we do and is informed by our three key pillars of change. So it would be shifting the culture of fashion production and consumption, incentivizing fashion brands to improve their practices, and also advocating for policy, which holds the industry accountable for its impact. So let's explore a little bit more about each of these pillars. The Fashion Revolution vision is for a global fashion industry that conserves and restores the environment and values people over profits and growth. And how we envision we are going to get there. So firstly, it's by engaging citizens to shift cultural mindset and attitudes towards fashion. One way we do this is through the Fashion Revolution Week, which is happening now all over the world, which is our annual campaign to bring the world's largest fashion activist movement together to raise awareness about the problems we care so much in the fashion industry and inspire action to help solve them. Secondly, it's by working towards a transparent and accountable fashion industry at all stages of the complex supply chain. So incentivize this by leading research, which we'll talk more about later, and by nurturing small businesses and designers with for example, the Fashion Open Studio, as the blueprint for sustainable and ethical design. And last but not least is by influencing legislation that improves working conditions, environmental impacts, and corporate accountability. That was a key goal of the campaign that I'm going to explain more in a few seconds. That's the glucose fair pay. Now it's important that we talk about a concept that's advocacy. So, yeah, thank you. So when we are campaigning, we are advocating for something. But what does it mean? So advocacy is the process of influencing decision makers for the changes we want to see. This could be through some processes, for example, lobbying policymakers to introduce a specific piece of legislation or mobilizing citizens to put pressure on their favorite brands to change. But why is advocacy so important? Because it can lead to shift in public attitudes and behavior, institutional policy and practices, or the political process and the system itself. It can also increase the influence and power of systematically marginalized people, so they can be heard in the process of the advocacy. And in short, we can advocate to help the environment and social changes we want to see in the industry and also in the world. So there are three. So what are the different forms of advocacy? How can you advocate? Broadly speaking, there are three different types. So the first one would be public campaigns to engage the everyday citizens in some kind of way. This could be through signing a petition, taking part on a digital storm, for example, that's a coordinated digital effort to send out tweets or messages at the same time. And also in-person activations which inform and involve the public in your campaign. The other type is for legal action that could describe that it's taking brands or governments to court. For example, filing a class action lawsuit against a brand that you suspect is greenwashing. And the other topic is on policy and advocacy. That could look like joining a coalition, a working group on sustainability issues to guide or advise on proposed legislation, which is exactly what we did, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. So recognizing that there is a massive gap in the European Union law, we launched the Good Clothes Fair Pay to call on the European Commission to introduce groundbreaking EU legislation on living wages for garment workers worldwide. We kicked off the campaign in July 2022 with this explainer animation.
Wearing good clothes means the people made them receive fair pay for their work. But right now, most textile and garment workers cannot afford to live in decent housing, eat healthy food, or go to the doctor. They even struggle to send their kids to school. A living wage is not a luxury, it is a fundamental human right. We demand laws that protect the human right to fair pay. We want to see a living wage for the people who make our clothes around the world. The EU has the power to change this. Help us get to 1 million signatures for Good Clothes Fair Pay. Sign now.
So this was the video. And before we share some insights, let's break down the components of the campaign using the same guiding questions we will be providing you in the second half of the workshop. So we need to start with the what. So what was the campaign? In this case, it was a European Citizens Initiative calling on the European Commission to introduce legislation that would ensure that people who make our clothes earn a living wage. We'll explain more of what is an European Citizens Initiative in the next slide. The why. So why did we launch this campaign? Because poverty pay is central to the global fashion industry. For too long, brands had promised to do the right thing, but hadn't. So we need legislation pressure to ensure that the right of a living wage is realized. Looking for the who, our main target was the European Commission, who has the power to propose new legislation. But to get enough legislation for them to consider this, we enlisted the support of the European Union citizens, policymakers, and the Fashion Revolution teams, our coalition partners, trade unions, influencers, and the press to sign and support the campaign. When? So in this case, the campaign took over 12 months between July 2022 and 2023. And we took advantage of key awareness dates, like the International Women's Day, the World Day of the International Justice, and also some trending cultural moments like award shows, for example. On the where, this campaign was held mostly online to reach as many eligible signatories as possible, as well as in-person events across the target European Union cities. And how we did this campaign? Well, I'm going to talk more about it, but we used a variety of tactics from campaign videos, influencer partnerships, social media ads, in-person activations, events, press, outreach, and a lot more to get the traction we needed. So it, Yeah, so the mechanism where we used to campaign was the European Citizens Initiative. An ECI is a unique instrument that enables citizens to call directly on the European Commission to propose legislation in an area of the European Union competence. So the campaign must collect at least 1 million signatures from the European Union citizens and reach a specific threshold in 7 European Union countries within 1 year, so 12 months. We chose this particular route because the European Union is the leading importer of apparel worldwide. And if this law passed, the law would be applicable to all companies selling in the market, in the European Union market, regardless of where the products were made, meaning that this would have the impact, would be global and far-reaching. So this is why we chose this route. In the UK, for example, you can directly petition the government. So if your petition goes beyond 10,000 signatures, the government must respond to you in writing. And if you get 100,000 signatures, the issue must be debated in Parliament. So this is a really useful mechanism for UK citizens to help influence and change law. Maybe if your campaign is policy focused, we recommend researching in your country. Maybe you have a similar initiative, or whether a local council might be the first initial target of your campaign. So this might be a tip on how to start your process. Something that was really important to us was building coalition work. There was the coalition working. So building partnerships and co-campaigning is important because it can expand your reach, amplify your message across different networks, and pool resources to build connections with important stakeholders who otherwise couldn't get a hold of what you're doing. It also helps to diversify your campaign tactics and audiences. So the coalition work was so important because we could not have run this campaign without the help of our steering and citizens committees, our dedicated European Union Fashion Revolution teams, and the 67 key partners and supporting organizations who you see here on the screen, who rallied behind the Glucose Fair Pay. We also had the support of members of the European Parliament, including Lara Walters and Lara Burkhardt. It was really important for us to evidence that our proposal was both wanted and needed by the people who made our quotes. So this was really key to the project. So it still is a big source of pride that 38 trade unions across Asia and Africa co-signed a letter in support of the campaign. Additional supporters included the Industrial, which is the largest trade union in Europe, and the CFDT, the largest trade union in France. We also learned on the support of influencers and celebrities, including the pop star Cigarettes and the sustainable fashion influencer Gemma Styles. And we also built relationships with journalists to drive awareness, securing global print, digital, broadcast coverages in important outlets like BBC International News, Euronews, British Vogue, and many more. We also took the campaign offline, with many of the European Union teams playing their own in-person events. So during Fashion Revolution Week last year, we had the opportunity to host a panel inside the European Parliament to call on European lawmakers to hold fashion brands accountable by law. Afterwards, we held a stunt outside, which played on the theme of time. So Fashionably Late highlighted that the European Union was running out of time to secure living wages for the people who make our clothes. We shared this reel on the day to highlight the scale of this injustice. So Fashion Revolution France, Netherlands, and Germany replicated these stunts in Paris, Amsterdam, and Cologne, incorporating our glasses into their displays, which you can see here on the screen. This event was important for building awareness, generating content to share online, and getting the attention of the press, such as the Euronews, who filmed us on the day. But like all campaigns, we faced many challenges. One of them was navigating the widespread consumer misconceptions about what a living wage legislation would mean for the price of clothing, especially during a cost of living crisis. So besides myth busting, we had to find new innovative ways to convey the importance of the issue. In the last days of the initiative, we played a spoof campaign with our friends from Clean Clothes Campaign. The idea was to post a series of fake job vacancies to raise awareness around poverty pay in fashion. Based on real-life working conditions in garment-producing countries, some of which you can see here on the screen, these were job interviews you could refuse. And we promptly shocked readers to sign the campaign to ensure that people who make our clothes didn't have to accept this condition in the job offers either. And an interesting fact is that we first asked ChatGPT to write our fake vacancies, but it flat out refused because the working conditions described were too exploitative. And we also did the same thing in LinkedIn, and LinkedIn similarly banned our ads. So this then became the story. Like, if real life pay and working hours of garment workers is unacceptable for AI, why is it acceptable for the mainstream fashion industry? Our reel that you just saw was widely viewed, shared by influencers, and even reported on because we used AI itself, which is a topic of popular disclosure in such a novel and confronting way. What we learned from this is that we need to be agile in our campaign. So an important tip is to regularly review the matches what matches are and aren't working, and monitor your audience's cultural references, so you can speak to them in a familiar and engaging way, like we did with the AI ears. In the 12 months, we secured 240,000 signatures across all 27 EU countries, passing the threshold we needed in Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, and Slovakia. This was no mean feat. We got close to 250,000 people to care about the people who make our clothes at a time living costs were soaring, and signatories had to provide a lot of personal data to sign the petition, as it is mandated to the European Union. So while we may not have reached the 1 million mark, We have led the largest ever living wage campaign in the fashion industry. And the campaign is far from over. The fight for living wage continues, and we'll continue to campaign on this topic. Delphine, which is the co-lead of the campaign, advises us that in-person events do not tend to translate to a lot of signatures. So to get the biggest reach, it's important to focus on increasing your visibility on social media by partnering with large partition platforms, collaborating with influencers, and even spending budget on social media ads. So if your campaign is more international than local in scope, digital engagement it's great to connecting with supporters who wouldn't locally have access to. Kira, who also led the campaign, reminds us that campaigning is a long game. Big wins in social justice, from the women's suffrage to the LGBTQ plus rights, to countless more, are not achieved overnight. But stubborn, sustained pressure does make a difference. So we need to don't be disappointed if we don't see an immediate change. We need to focus on movement and community building. So this is a really great tip for those who are campaigning for social and environmental change. Campaigns that make a difference often require action many days, weeks, and sometimes years. So resilience and perseverance are key. You might not always get the desired result straight away, but you take the learnings forward, and we need to refuse to quit because we'll get there. And now we'll go back to the first Fashion Revolution campaign, was the Who Made My Clothes. It was created to call on fashion brands of all sizes to be more transparent about their supply chain policies, practices, and impact. It was designed in the reaction of the Rana Plaza factory collapse. So the Rana Plaza building housed a number of garment factories employing around 5,000 people who manufacture clothing for the many of the biggest global fashion brands. And on 24th of April in 2013, the building collapsed, killing more than 1,000 people and injured more than 2,500 others, making it the fourth largest industrial disaster in history. In the aftermath, activists had to dig through the rubble to find the labels of the brands producing there, just exposing how untransparent the industry is. So in response, in 2014, we launched the Inside Out campaign, which encouraged participants to show the inside label of the garment and ask the brand who made it, which you can see here, Stella McCartney modeling for us. An interesting fact is that we had to go through a name change when a Disney film with the same title came out. So this is why we changed the name of the campaign, and the Who Made My Clothes was truly born, which in my opinion is such a better name. So it's great sometimes that change happens. The campaign got thousands of people on the street demanding for more information about their favorite brands. And we saw consumers share social media content after the going on the streets, calling for the same thing. And we still, to this day, see a lot of people calling the brands using the Who Made My Clothes hashtag. So it's still, to this day, is a really effective campaign. So the Who Made My Clothes was a social media hit, highlighting the power of digital campaigning to unify communities across the world in the support of a shared cause. In 2014, before the rebranding, the Inside Out trends at #1 on Twitter. And since that moment, hundreds of thousands of posts and brands' responses have been shared online. Thanks to social media, the conversation gained traction across the globe, sending a clear message to the fashion industry that transparency is the ultimate bare minimum for business responsibility. But can we say that Who Made My Clothes was successful, and in what ways was it? So it sparked the beginnings of a global movement, leading to a rapid growth in the global north, which now global network, which now encompasses 75 countries and counting. It helped shape shape a cultural shift where more consumers than ever consider a brand transparency levels when making a purchase decision. So, for example, in our 2020 consumer survey report, 69 of the respondents wanted to know how their clothes were manufactured. And a recent report by Avery Dennison revealed that 2/3 of global fashion shoppers design more transparency when it comes to the origin of the garments. This has been accompanied by tangible change in the fashion industry transparency levels also. In 2017, only 32 of the 100 brands, so 32%, analyzed on the Fashion Transparency Index disclosed the first-tier suppliers list. And now, 7 years later, 129 out of the 250 major fashion brands, so it would be 52%, disclose their factory list. So in 7 years, we went from 32% to 52% of disclosure. However, industry progress is still very low, with major fashion brands and retailers continuing to omit crucial information. A decade on, knowing who made my clothes, it's not enough anymore. We need to keep asking questions like, were the people who made my clothes paid a living wage? What's the volume of clothing do brands produce on a year? And what are the industry plans to transition for a fossil-free world? These are 3 areas that will guide our future campaigning work. While the Who Make My Clothes ask the right question at the right time, our work is far from done. We need to keep demanding total and radical transparency to hold the industry to account. And why was the Who Made My Clothes a very popular campaign? First, it was reactionary and timely, channeling the public outrage at the Rana Plaza tragedy into targeted action. We asked a simple yet very stimulating question, one that many citizens at the time hadn't thought to ask themselves before. And we did so in an inviting way, without stirring up individual shame or pointing the finger. This helped to initiate many people into the fashion activism for the first time. And with the help of celebrities, we use social media to connect fashion revolutionaries across the globe and grow our international community of supporters, while also taking our message to the streets to help spread the word locally. Demonstrating how digital campaigns can be translated into in-person activations, in 2016, the Fashion Revolution team in Germany installed a vending machine in Berlin. So this is really nice. The experiment was designed to educate and empower citizens by letting them know that fashion is made by humans and that big fashion sometimes exploits humans. so that you have a choice and a voice. So this was said by the Fashion Revolution German team, and it worked. In the social experiment, 8 out of the 10 shoppers decided against the purchase once they were informed about the conditions it was created in. A year later, Fashion Revolution Brazil set up a pop-up shop in São Paulo, offering too good to be true deals. And like the Fashion Revolution Germany, they captured the attention of everyday shoppings in a familiar setting and used the opportunity to expose a hidden truth. And here it's interesting also to mention that I was a volunteer in 2016 in this activation in Brazil. It was the first time that I got to know the movement, and it caught me exactly by bringing the problem to a local audience. And by this day, I'm really active in the Fashion Revolution and started working here. So this just shows that local activation is also really important.
Abriu meus olhos. Quando a gente olha e vê as imagens, isso mexe com a gente, né?
Não sabia que isso acontecia no Brasil.
Agora eu vou parar mais pra pensar.
Depois de ver tudo, eu me senti culpada.
Não dá pra ficar consumindo tanto sabendo disso. Daqui em diante a gente tem que pesquisar. São seres humanos que estão do outro lado.
And Fernanda Simon, she's the Fashion Revolution Brazil director, tell us that many people still have no idea what lie behind our clothes. And unfortunately, this kind of information is not very accessible. So the fashion experience that we just saw brought this issue to the streets and engaged with people who were unaware of the reality. Creating spaces for exchange with the community is fundamental to changing the system. Another important way we campaign is through leading industry-leading research. Every year since 2017, we have published the Fashion Transparency Index to spotlight how much information the world's largest fashion brands disclose about the environmental and social policies, practices, and impacts. Our research has been used by a wide variety of stakeholders, from investors looking to incentivize greater industry transparency, to civil society organizations holding brands accountable for the human rights and environmental abuses. Our research has been featured far and wide online and was recently quoted in a post for the Speak Volumes campaign. In a run-up of Black Friday, our friends from the Our Foundation called on brands of all sizes to disclose how many items of clothing they produced in the previous year. And the information we had is that just 12% of the major fashion brands analyzed in the Fashion Transparency Index shared this with our research. So only 12% of the brands published their annual production volume. This campaign video illustrates why this is such a big problem.
How to speak volumes for everyone. We're challenging 100 brands of all sizes to speak volumes before Black Friday 2023. All they have to do is publish their 2022 production volumes. This isn't like calculating the carbon footprint of a product. This is information that every brand has readily available. This shouldn't be a trade secret. Here's the problem. If we are going to clean up fashion's waste crisis and transform the industry to be circular, we need to know how many garments there are. It's time to encourage the brands to speak volumes. Here's how you can help. Go to stopwastecolonialism.org/speak volumes. Fill out the form and challenge up to 3 brands to publish their 2022 production volumes. The 20 brands listed were selected because they are frequently found in the waste stream on Ghana beaches. We will then send letters to the most frequently selected brands on your behalf, encouraging them to speak volumes. By participating, they also commit to publishing this information in their annual reports. When a brand speaks volumes, they help us to develop more nuanced frameworks for extended producer responsibility and the eco-modulation of fees, ensuring that policies are fair and effective. Publishing production volumes also establishes a benchmark from which we can work with bigger brands on strategies to reduce the production of new clothes and enhance the reuse, upcycling, and recycling of the clothing already here. If we don't hear from the brands you selected by November 17th, we will send you an email with information on how you can raise your voice online to encourage these brands to speak volumes. It's time to turn down the volume on new products and turn up.
So now to the other part of our workshop, using the OR, our Foundation Speak Volumes campaign as an inspiration, we would like to challenge you to come up with a campaign idea based on data from our latest Fashion Transparency Index. So on the latest Fashion Transparency Index, we found out that just 12% of the 250 largest fashion brands, only 12% of them published a time-bound measurable commitment to zero deforestation. And this was down 3% from the previous years. And also, we found out that only 7% of those brands published a measurable progress towards achieving zero deforestation. Despite deforestation being one of the industry's most pressing environmental impacts, leading to biodiversity loss and rising of the global warming. So can you use this data as a starting point to do a campaign? And what should your campaign include? So a good campaign answers the following questions that we already discussed based on the Good Clothes Fair Pay campaign. So it would be the what. So what's the campaign goal? Do you have a long-term goal made up of short-term goals? What change are you hoping to achieve? What are your key messages? And what are the best ways to communicate them? The why. So why is your campaign socially and environmentally and culturally important? In other words, why are you campaigning in the first place? The who. So who is the campaign directed at? Who are you influencing, and who will advocate for this change? We are going to share some tools to help you answer the who shortly. The when and the where are the best opportunities to advocate for change. So, and what's the timeline, and where are you going to advocate? And how? So, how will you bring bring about this change? What online and offline tactics will you use? Influence mapping can help you identify your target recipients of and supporters of the campaign. So around the campaign primary target, you can map the groups and organizations and people who have influence over them and what they do. For example, a policymaker is likely to listen to their constituents, legal experts, lobbying organizations. Brands, on the other hand, are responsive to customer complaints and negative press. So this tool is really useful for generating a list of contacts and groups you need to work with. Once you've identified the groups of people you could engage with, stakeholder prioritization tool can help you identify which groups you should engage with first. So map out your target groups onto the axis against how much influence they have around your campaign topic and how much they support your cause. For example, While all politicians could technically introduce a piece of legislation, ideologically aligned politicians are much more likely to do that than someone on the opposite end of the political spectrum. To use another example, press coverage can help raise awareness, but it's worth targeting media located in the areas you are campaigning in. Any groups or stakeholders that fall on the lower diagonal of the chart should be deprioritized, as their influence or support is likely to be low of effect. So let's design a campaign together. We'd like now to open up the discussion to collaboratively brainstorm a campaign around deforestation. Based on the following questions, does anyone have any additional ideas on how the campaign could look like? So this is our starting point here, that just 12% of major fashion brands published a time-bound measurable commitment to zero deforestation. So what could our campaign goal and message be? Does anyone have any thoughts and also any questions about this?
I'm happy to jump in and share some of the thoughts that we had from the campaigning session earlier this week. So
great.
in the UK, we have, and I'm sure it's in other parts of the world too, we have this teddy bear picnic and this nursery rhyme where if you go down to the woods today, you're sure for a big surprise. Based on the idea that lots of people find nature and trees very magical. So we could take this idea of a fairy tale and twist it, and the surprise being actually the much more negative impacts of deforestation, which was a really lovely idea. And we also talked about potentially doing walking tours in parks. We had this feeling that lots of people care about nature and they care about trees, and lots of people care about fashion, but they aren't connecting the dots between the two and how wood can lead to a t-shirt, for example. So also talked about potentially doing some public campaigning where it'd be in a busy consumer space. We would have trees and t-shirts and kind of get people asking them, like, how do you think this turns into this? Did you know that the production of viscose is leading to mass deforestation, which is leading to these environmental and social impacts? So that was some of the ideas that we were ideating on, but I'd be really keen to hear if anyone else has any ideas. Maybe you have your own cultural references in your own country and associate them with trees, or you've seen an example of a really brilliant campaign on a similar topic. Yeah, we'd love to open up discussion and hear from you too. I know it's daunting, but if ever anyone's feeling brave, go for it.
Yeah, and feel free to turn off your camera if you don't want, and use the chat also to share your ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
In the meantime, while you think about it, I can also share a brilliant campaign I saw. I don't remember exactly who did this. I believe it was Greenpeace, but it was like a store full of leather bags. And once people opened the bag, like to see what's inside, they saw a really bad video of how animals are treated in the leather industry, in the cattle industry. So this campaign could be something in that area too. So like when you see a t-shirt or something, when you look inside of it, you can see messages or data about deforestation, or maybe even like smell. Like you can smell like the burn of the tree, the burn of the soil. This could also be something really good to channel. I believe that it's really powerful when we are campaigning for change that we utilize our senses. So what would be the smell? It's hot there, it's cold there. What's the tactile sensation? So I think those are also really good tips when designing a campaign.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to add like the other work of campaign that I have been like receiving here in Costa Rica. And it's these people that they are my friends actually that they have um magazine that is called Wind Blue, but they what they do it's kind of doing a positive campaign, like a campaign but with a positive messages and histories about nature instead of showing the other way, right, which is the hard pictures or the other way to see the situation. So what they do, it's basically, yes, like create histories with the different people around the world, histories with the nature, so you will be connected with the nature too. In that case, you will be conscious about how where to use and how like all the practices around, since you're taking conscious about what the nature give us. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. This is really interesting, and it's a good angle also to go to the positive side. And I think this can really gain traction because sometimes we only see the bad things in media, for example, in our day-to-day when you're rolling your social media. So when you see something positive, it also pops up and you pay attention to that and give a sense of community building as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing. It's a really precious idea. Uh, Aislinn, sorry, I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly, shared an idea also in the chat that she had been exploring developing an idea with a range of charity thrift shops in Ireland. So a mannequin and a sign disclosing incredible savings. And then you look more closely at the tag and they read like save water, save trees, save labor. Yeah, that's really great. It's also utilizing like the curiosity of the everyday people that are on the streets that might be interested in that cheap deal, and then showing a positive message instead. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else has any other ideas or anything that they would like to share?
I can't see the call, so apologies if I'm jumping. But another thing that we spoke about in our last workshop was platforming the stories of people who are working in forestry, particularly across Latin America. I know, Isabella, your team Brazil do a lot of work on this because it's very close to your heart, and physically too. And they use the example of Cotton Diaries, which is a really brilliant storytelling project if you've not come across it before, which is telling new narratives about cotton and speaking directly to farmers. It's really beautiful, and I think there's definitely scope for doing and bringing in those voices and that more positive but also human angle in a campaign like this as well.
For sure, and I think it's like also a step further of the Who Made My Clothes campaign, which is really showcasing and storytelling of the people who are really in the fields, who are making the clothes. So yeah, it would be brilliant if someone could do like the same in people like doing printing and working with other sides of the fashion supply chain. And I encourage everyone to check the Cotton Diary series because it's really emotional to see the hands of the people who are really collecting the cotton and who are really a part of the change. It's really pretty. If anyone else also has questions of what we presented before, feel free to ask or put in the chat too. We can also use this time to answer. Okay, so I guess if we don't have any other ideas or any questions, we can jump to the next slide. And to summarize everything called today, I know it was a lot to dive in and to reflect on. So we would like to leave you with this. So what makes a good campaign? So in our experience, how do you build a successful campaign? A good campaign is centered around community and coalition building. This is so important for reaching more people, pooling resources, and avoiding the burnout, which is something that if you are working with volunteers, you might encounter. People have their day-to-day lives, and volunteering is a part of it. So we need to also be careful when we are building a community to avoid the burnout of people who are involved in the cause. And also to build a successful campaign, it needs to be centered in serving the community needs. A good campaigner needs to understand the cultural landscape and use the cultural references, well-timed cultural moments to challenge the ideals, to broaden the perspectives and gain relevance. They are experimental and reactive, responding to trending news and finding the right moment to engage key stakeholders. So when we are campaigning for social and environmental change, we also always need to be linked to everything that's happening and know how we can utilize the cultural pop moments, for instance, into what we are doing. And our final piece of advice is to leave room for your campaigning to adapt and evolve. Maybe your messaging isn't working and needs tweaking slightly, or maybe one tactic proves particularly successful, so you need to prioritize that going forward. Campaigning takes patience, perseverance, and resilience. Change isn't something that happens, it's something that we need to make happen. And that's why, despite all the setbacks and pivots, we keep campaigning. And we encourage you to keep campaigning with us, and we hope that you'll join us if you're not a part of the Fashion Revolution Global Network yet. Thank you so much for being here with us. We hope that you keep campaigning in the causes that you care most about. Please share with us if you had any insights after this workshop, or if you had anything that you think could help the fashion industry and all the causes that we care so much about. We would also love to hear your thoughts on today's workshop, so we can keep making Fashion Revolution Week even bigger and better. This QR code takes you to a quick and easy survey to fill out, so please fill that for us. And when you have the option to enter in our international prize draw, and be the chance to winning 3 brilliant prizes kindly gifted by the Craftists Collective to help your campaign through crafts. I hope you enjoyed this workshop and found some inspiration in our work to go forward in your campaigns. And I would also like to encourage you to participate in the Fashion Revolution events that might be occurring in your city, in the place that you live in, or online also. In the Fashion Revolution website, you can find all the information of activities going on in 75 different countries. So we have a lot of things going on. And I would like also to highlight that tomorrow we're going to have our Men in Public Day worldwide. So look at our website. I think the last time I checked, we had 100 plus Men in Public Days. So I know I am going to one here in Sao Paulo tomorrow to mend some clothes that I have with other people, and to gather more other people that are passing by in the streets, and to make them join the discussions. So thanks everyone. And also if you have any questions, please, we are here and we'll be really happy to help you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thank you.